Now, CNN political commentators Angela Rye and Kevin Madden and CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein. You know, Ron, on the basis of your merit right there, being senior, I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah.
The president spoke the words that he spoke yesterday, condemning by name white supremacists and neo-Nazis. But since then, on social media, he has retweeted a man who was trafficked in pure, dangerous conspiracy theories. And he's talked openly about pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Arizona, a man who, again, is trafficked in the birther conspiracies that the president did for a long, long time. What message do you think the president has sent since his statement yesterday?
Well, you know, until yesterday, he had followed exactly the same template he did with the David Duke controversy back in March 2016. But now he's added this new twist of further undercutting his words. I mean, the template was set when he was interviewed by Jake Tapper the Sunday before the largest concentration of Southern primaries in the Republican contest last year, when he sent a clear initial message by what he didn't say, when he did not denounce David Duke, and then he only kind of, after a broad bipartisan backlash across mainstream opinion in both parties, did he kind of pro forma denounce Duke. He did exactly the same thing here. I think there was no question that they were sending a message by what they did not say initially, and then inevitably, under pressure, he mouthed the words that everybody was demanding he did. The new twist was this time, as you suggest, he undercut it very dramatically with a series of tweets, including ones attacking the fake news, showing a train running over CNN, talking about pardoning Sheriff Arpaio, and retweeting a kind of alt-right conspiracy theorist about violence in Chicago, implying that that was at least as great a problem as what happened in Charlottesville. So there is no doubt there is a kind of dual-level messaging going on here from the president.
We should know, you mentioned a tweet about a train hitting a reporter from CNN. The White House says the president accidentally tweeted that image, and he has removed the tweet of the train hitting a reporter. Angela, there has been reaction, sort of a different type of reaction than we've seen in the past, and this time it's from a group that the president really does care dearly about, his corporate CEOs. You know, he loves to surround himself with the business community, his manufacturing council, his various business meetings. And over the last 24 hours, the CEO of Merck, Kenneth Frazier, has quit the manufacturing council. Now Kevin Plank from Under Armour and the head of Intel as well. You know, what statement do you think these businesses are sending, Angela?
Well, I think they're sending a semi-strong statement, and I say semi-strong statement because these CEOs were well aware of whose council they were serving on when they decided to agree to sit on this council. I think the bigger challenge I have right now, frankly, John, is Donald Trump chose to attack the black CEO of Merck yesterday, talking about him going to hike up drug prices. Again, right after the wake of what happened in Charlottesville. And of course, this is Donald Trump's choice. The reason why it took so long for Donald Trump to condemn what happened in Charlottesville is because it's hard to condemn what you've spent your entire career supporting and benefiting from, what you spent your campaign benefiting from and upon. So there's a very harsh reality that I think this country now has to face. Donald Trump, if he's not a white supremacist, certainly benefits from white supremacy. And until we are okay with that and understand the full definition, the scope, depth of the violence of this movement, we are going to be stuck right here having these same kind of fights. I think you saw the vitriol on air yesterday. And so it's great that these CEOs have decided to step back. I would like to see more of the CEOs, if not all of them, step down completely. But it's, again, too little too late, just like his remarks yesterday. You
know, Jeff Zeleny reporting, which is very interesting, that the White House actively pressuring some of these companies and their CEOs to stay on right now. So that's happening behind the scenes. And also, Angela, I do want to note, you know, the only one of the CEOs to quit over the last 3 days that the president has gone after, you know, is Ken Frazier, who is the one who is African-American. We will let you interpret that as you will. Kevin Madden, you know, we've heard from the business community. There's another group of people we heard from overnight in a loud and unusual way. That was the late night comics who weighed in here. I want to play you a little bit of Seth Meyers.
You can stand for a nation or you can stand for a hateful movement. You can't do both. And if you don't make the right choice, I'm confident that the American voter will.
You know, it was notable. Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon all said things that weren't comedy at all. I mean, they made flat out, you know, sincere statements of what their beliefs were. And I'm asking you, not just because you're funny, but because you're so young. The president's approval rating right now among young people is even worse than it is nationally. It's his worst age group, 18 to 34, 28% approval, 67% disapproval. And when I heard what the late night comics were saying last night, I was wondering if that could make his difficulties with this group even worse.
Well, sure. I mean, look, I think that group is already progressive, and I think they've showed and demonstrated by how they vote and how they act and how they've approached this White House that they have a calcified opposition to the president and his agenda. And I think that's one of the things, the dangers of the late night impact on the collective opinion of the American people is that not everybody's like you or I, where we follow the news all day long, and we read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and watch cable news. And oftentimes people get their news through an atomized version of the day's events on late night television. So for somebody like Seth Meyers to come out and make a statement like that, it does have quite an impact on how people formulate their opinions about some of the public policy debates of the day.
Let's just hope most people are not like you and me, Kevin Madden, yeah. right there. That will be hopeful for the country. Ron Brownstein, weigh in on the poll numbers right now, not just the youth, but these new Gallup numbers, which show the president at an historic low.
Right. He is at his lowest approval rating of his presidency in Gallup, and strikingly, his disapproval rating at 61% is higher than was ever reached by the last two one-term presidents, Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush. Never got up to 61% approval. In fact, if you look back at moments of national security crisis like we're in now in North Korea, only Jimmy Carter in Iran in 1979 has been anywhere near as weak as the president has been. And I think there are two other elements that need to be, kind of noted about where he is in the polls. The first is that he is in this very weak position while conditions in the country are generally pretty good. There are not gas lines, as Jimmy Carter faced. There is not a severe economic recession as Ronald Reagan faced at the beginning or Barack Obama faced at the beginning of his presidency. Times are pretty good. This is very much a personal judgment. And the second point, I think, really goes to what you're just discussing with Kevin, which is the question of what Donald Trump means for the long-term image of the Republican Party, particularly with younger generations. In effect, he has offered Republicans a trade. He has strengthened their support among blue-collar, older, non-urban whites at the price of raising big questions about what their long-term image will be with the millennial generation and younger, which is more diverse, more secular, and as Kevin noted, more progressive. It's worth noting that in 2018, for the first time ever, millennials will exceed baby boomers as a share of eligible voters. They won't pass them as among actual voters because they don't vote in as high in numbers, but that transition is coming. And I think Republicans who worried about what Trump's long-term impact would be on the image of the party, the wolf is now kind of at the door after Charlottesville.
Can I add one thing to that, Ron, too? One of the other things I'd say, too, is that if you look at the traditional alliance between Republicans and independents, that has been shattered in the last few months. And as you go into 2018, where many of these battleground congressional districts, where they're in suburban areas where independents do factor in pretty prominently, that's going to be a great challenge as we move forward next year.
Angela, quick last word?
Yeah, just really quickly. Ron, you mentioned that, times are pretty good right now, and I think that this is a great example of how very differently folks in this country see it, whether you're talking about the millennials that John just cited in this earlier poll or these overall disapproval these numbers. I think that it's very clear that the country is not in such a positive state. Sure, you can talk about economic numbers, et cetera, but I think we would be very remiss, right, if we did not acknowledge the state of this American culture and how things feel. And I think that matters when people decide whether or not they approve of the president's rating.
All right, my young millennial friends, Ron Brownstein, Kevin Madden, Angela Rye, thanks so much for being with me today. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Thanks, John.
All right, the federal government says that white supremacists will pose a threat of lethal violence over the next year. Why? We're going to speak to a former neo-Nazi. Plus, controversy at the University of Nevada after saying it will not expel this student who marched in a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville. We're going to ask a lawmaker from that state about the school's decision. In North Korea,